Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. And welcome back to FOMO Friday. Yes, we love FOMO Friday. And as you can tell from my voice, probably, I am not doing great. I have come down with something, but you know what? I can't miss FOMO Friday. FOMO Friday is awesome. And we love to just dispense of your fear of missing out by, bringing you the stories of the week that you should probably know a little bit about. And there are quite a few this week. And from a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes this very first one. And I will say this right up front, that I know we did a podcast on Wednesday, our last podcast about gun control in Canada, and the fact that they're doing mandatory voluntary buybacks. Yeah. But I will say that I did not know about what was going on here. Obviously, this was done later, and I recorded that podcast before what happened here. So just so you know. Now, what happened was that an 18-year-old man attacked a rural Canadian school, and he identified as a woman and had a history of mental illness, and law enforcement confirmed this on Wednesday. Police identified the man who opened fire on Tumbler Ridge Secondary School in British Columbia, killing 6 people, as Jesse Van Rootselaar, who was found dead at the school, began to transition about 6 years ago. This is what the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Deputy Commissioner Dwayne McDaniel said, "I will say this. We identify the suspect as they choose to be identified in public and on social media," he said. "I can say that Jesse was born as a biological male who approximately 6 years ago began to transition to female and identified as female, both socially and publicly." Now, McDonald used female pronouns for the attacker, despite the fact that he was a male, and repeatedly called him female throughout the Wednesday press conference. 2 people identified as Van Rootselaar's mother and brother were found dead in a nearby residence the day of the shooting. McDonald said that police had seized guns from the residence in previous years. And Canadian outlets have identified the mother and brother as Jennifer and Emmett Strang, respectively. He also said that police had visited the residence multiple times, dealing with, well, as he put it, concerns of mental health. Yeah. With regard to the shooter, of course. He said the shooter had been detained in the past because of mental health concerns. And in the immediate aftermath of the attack, investigators refused to release the name and sex of the attacker. The first alert described the attacker as a woman wearing a dress, and they later referred to him as a gun person. Yeah, a gun person. Speculation began circulating that a YouTube page called Jess UWU was run by the shooter, and the page featured an anime feature and a rifle with colors associated with the pink, purple, and blue transgender flag in the background. According to screenshots captured by conservative publisher Juno News, after the reports started linking the shooting to the account, it was removed, and YouTube channel's owner showcased her pronouns in the biography section. Quote, "Following this horrible incident, our trust and safety teams identified and removed a YouTube channel associated with the alleged suspect in accordance with our creator responsibility guidelines," is what YouTube said. The lone post on the channel was an anime illustration of a person smoking, captioned, "I've been pretty aimless," unquote. I mean, I can tell you why you're aimless, but anyway. A police alert issued immediately after the shooting said the suspect was wearing a dress and called them a gun person, as opposed to a gun person, a gunman, since the shooter identified as non-binary. Um, the victim at the school included a 39-year-old teacher and 5 children between the ages of 12 and 13. So yes, just a tragedy here, and we have had numerous instances just like this, and they're not finding a link between all of these shootings. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Well, another story that came out this week, which is really interesting, I thought. You remember Colony Ridge, right? Colony Ridge, the Texas neighborhood that became the fastest growing development in the country thanks to a marketing scheme that targeted illegal immigrants, has agreed to pay $68 million in penalties in a joint settlement with the Trump administration and the state of Texas. The developers of Colony Ridge, located just north of Houston, came under both federal and state investigations after a 2023 report by the Daily Wire exposed it, and how it grew to nearly 100,000 residents with a business model catered to illegal immigrants. Its Spanish-only marketing campaigns were directed at foreign buyers, and the initial lawsuit was brought by the Biden administration, which said Colony Ridge targeted Hispanic customers with predatory loans and misled them about what they were getting. Colony Ridge sold inexpensive plots of land at sky-high interest rates, with a type of loan available to illegal immigrants who are ineligible to apply for traditional loans, of course. The buyers ended up in a cycle of foreclosure, of course, creating a nightmare for thousands of hardworking Hispanic families. Biden's Department of Justice said treating the illegal immigrant population as a victim. The settlement, however, was reached by the Trump administration and Texas Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton. Its provisions appear designed not only to punish Colony Ridge, but also to end its ability to give loans to illegal immigrants and even to supercharge deportations. Included in the settlement is a pledge to require purchasers to present a valid Texas-issued driver's license or identification card, or a valid visa issued after January 1st of last year. Also included is a pledge to spend $20 million to build a new law enforcement center inside Colony Ridge, where the cartel activity has taken a foothold. According to Paxton, the funding can be used to facilitate deportations carried out by local Texas law enforcement. Quote, Colony Ridge endangered American citizens by allowing illegal aliens to run rampant on its streets, in its schools, and in its community. Now it's time for those responsible to pay a steep cost for their unlawful actions, is what Paxton said. He also said that my office will continue to bring the full force of the law against anyone who threatens the safety of our state or creates a safe harbor for illegals. Paxton's office said the agreement halts the development of a de facto illegal immigrant community, which, again, is exactly what it was. Among the other provisions are $48 million for infrastructure improvements to the development, which was plagued by flooding and sewage issues, and a promise to end predatory lending practices. Quote, this DOJ will go after all lenders, financiers, and land developers who participate in schemes which ultimately encourage illegal immigration. This is what Hamit Dillon, who leads the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. She said the change required by this settlement will promote public safety and affordable and sustainable home ownership in America, key priorities of this administration. Now, Colony Ridge became a flashpoint, of course, if you'll remember, for the illegal immigration crisis in America. The massive influx of illegal immigrants that came across the border during the Biden administration found a whole community that was ready to accept them, of course. The communities that surrounded them all of a sudden saw their lives changed. Their once quiet towns were now down the street from shocking crimes, such as, three previous deported illegal immigrants who were caught with 344 pounds of crystal meth. Drug cartel leadership was there. Several brutal murders happened. And after President Trump took office, deportation raids captured more than 100 targets at the Colony Ridge alone. So, yeah, that was that's very good news. That they reached a settlement and that they'll have to reverse what was going on there. And speaking of drug cartels and things, a Mexican cartel drone incursion in the border city of El Paso, Texas, forced a temporary shutdown. Get this, by the FAA on Wednesday. While the southern border is seeing record low illegal crossings since President Trump returned to the White House, cartels still lurk, finding new ways to threaten the United States. Several cartels operate in the border area there, which for years profited off of the open borders under the Biden administration, where human smuggling became their largest source of income. Robert Beltran, a constable, in Hudspeth County, which neighbors El Paso, told the Daily Wire that the Mexican cartels are now desperate to find new ways to move narcotics and contraband by air, since the land and sea has been blocked off. And weeks after Trump's second inauguration, federal agents received a warning that cartels in Mexico were employing suicide drones. Yeah, suicide drones. On February 1st of last year, the El Paso Sector Intelligence and Operations Center received information advising the Mexican cartel leaders have authorized the deployment of drones equipped with explosives to be used against U.S. Border Patrol agents and U.S. military personnel currently working along the border with Mexico. This was from an internal memo titled Officer Safety Alert. Quote, "It is recommended that all U.S. Border Patrol agents and DOD, that's Department of Defense, personnel working along the border report any sighting of drones to the respective leadership, staff, and the EPT IOC. Last week in nearby New Mexico, law enforcement officials from both sides of the border came together to discuss ways to counter the cartel increasing use of drones. That came from a border report. This is a quote. "What we are doing here today is making it possible for Chimichanga and New Mexico to be more safe and secure." The public safety security officer there, Gilberto Loya, said at a news conference following the meeting, "To that end, we have started today a structural collaboration to tackle these emerging issues and crime." In Mexico, cartels have deployed drones in recent years to carry out assassinations, believe it or not. Cartels sent bomb droppings drones into central Mexican states, a central Mexican state there, killing Mexican soldiers operating in the area in 2024. Last year, a Mexican army officer and soldier and a police officer were injured after a cartel drone dropped explosives on them. Quote, "We've had a pair of incidents in which members of organized crime are using drones with explosives to hinder our personnel on the ground, and there is a strong presence by the Ministry of Defense, and we are making substantial advances." Well, the FAA initially instituted a 10-day airspace closure of the El Paso airport on Wednesday, citing special security reasons. That closure has since been reversed, and they're back up to being able to use their airspace again in their airport. Mexican cartel drones breached U.S. airspace, according to a Trump administration official, adding that the Department of War immediately acted to disable the drones. So how fun would that be to take those things out, right? The FAA and the DOW have determined there is no threat to commercial travel, what an official said. And about 15 miles from El Paso is Santa Teresa, New Mexico. Similar restrictions were put in place there as well. So we'll keep definitely an eye on this, and we'll see what we can find out as the days go by. Well, speaking of finding out as the days go by, there has been kind of a reversal when it comes to marijuana and the thoughts on that. Even liberals are recognizing how crazy we've gotten. The New York Times editorial board, the New York Times editorial board expressed concern this week that massive marijuana craze in America might have some major side effects. Can you imagine that? And major side effects besides drowsiness and the munchies, right? Well, the Times editorial board, which dedicated a series of articles to pushing for marijuana legalization over 10 years ago, they admitted on Monday that some of its arguments for legalized weed have been proven wrong after states began allowing recreational and medical marijuana use. It seems that many talking points from the pro-marijuana legalization side are falling apart as research uncovers some brutal truths about America's pot craze. Quote, in our editorials, we described marijuana addiction and dependence as relatively minor problems. Many advocates went further and claimed that marijuana was a harmless drug that might even bring net health benefits. They also said that legalization might not lead to a greater use. This is what the Times editorial board wrote. They said, it is now clear that many of these predictions were wrong. Legalization has led to much more use. Surveys suggest that about 18 million people in the United States have used marijuana almost daily. Almost daily, or about 5 times a week. And they've done that in recent years. That is up from around 6 million. So 6 million in 2012, 18 million now, and less than 1 million in 1992. More Americans now use marijuana than daily alcohol use. Later, the editorial board added that, quote, the unfortunate truth is that the loosening of marijuana policies, especially the decision to legalize pot without adequately regulating it, has led to worse outcomes than many Americans expected. It is time to acknowledge reality and change course. It is rare for the Times to admit to, so clearly pushing a narrative that turned out to be wrong. So if American pot problem is becoming so evident that even the legacy media is pumping the brakes, how bad is it? Well, addiction and other health issues stemming from marijuana use have spiked in the past decade as more states hopped on the pot bandwagon. As the Times pointed out, a large percentage of marijuana users aren't just smoking a joint or two on the weekend. They're consuming marijuana on a daily basis. According to research from Yale Medicine, a staggering 30% of cannabis users meet the criteria for addiction. That is almost a third. This heavy reliance on marijuana comes with multiple potential health risks, including cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. Again, I'm not a medical guy. I probably really slaughtered that one, but which gives users intense stomach pain and can cause vomiting. At least one recent study has also linked cannabis use to schizophrenia. The study published in Psychological Medicine found that up to 30% of schizophrenia cases in young men can be linked to cannabis use disorder. A study conducted by UC San Diego School of Medicine and the New York University Grossman School of Medicine, meanwhile, found that employees who use cannabis regularly were more likely to miss work. Shocker, right? I mean, I just can't believe, how shocking this new news is. The advocacy group Smart Approaches to Marijuana has also pointed to research showing that driving fatalities involving marijuana skyrocketed between the year 2000 and 2018. Kevin Sabet, the president and CEO of Smart Approaches to Marijuana, told the Daily Wire that legalization leading to increase in addiction was absolutely predictable. Yeah. Quote, despite the promises of the legalizers, federal data shows that, just as the Times noted, legalization drives use. Yes, legalization drives use, including youth use increased. So Sabet said that this is true in the national aggregate and in individual state data. It's not rocket science. No. If you have a powerful addictive drug, easier to access, and send the signal that it's okay to use it in the process, more people are going to use it. Duh, right? That is what I and many other people who were aware of the danger warned would happen, and it is precisely what did happen. Now that nearly half the country has legalized marijuana in some or all forms, Sabet said the best path forward is for states to focus on making sure that people, and above all young people, know how dangerous and destructive marijuana is. A permanent investment in infrastructure meant to promote prevention and awareness. Quote, and it's beyond important to remember here what the Times piece truly reveals, he says. Namely, that while people may disagree about policies and execution, they are now all agreed on the same set of facts. That those facts show beyond doubt that marijuana is dangerous, it's addictive, and creating havoc across America. The data pointing to some of these issues was available when the Times editorial board began publishing its series arguing for federal legalization. In 2014, paper researchers Haif Wen, Jason M. Hockenberry, and Janet R. Cummings found that marijuana legalization led to an increase in marijuana abuse and dependence. In the 2014 paper, it also found that a legalization surge was happening. So did the rate at which adolescents experimented with the drug. Ironically, the Times editorial board's shift on marijuana coincides with the federal government in the process of reforming how it regulates the drug. In December, President Donald Trump signed an order to open the door to reclassifying marijuana as a Scheduled III drug, meaning marijuana would be in the same category as drugs that have a moderate to low potential of physical or psychological dependence. For decades, the U.S. government has categorized marijuana as a Schedule I substance, which is defined as no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. And now we're seeing that that is correct. The U.S. Government's potential reclassification would not legalize marijuana at the federal level, but it could reduce the scale of marijuana-related offenses. As the president was considering the marijuana reclassification last year, nearly 50 organizations signed a letter urging Trump to keep marijuana classified as a Schedule I drug, arguing that marijuana fits squarely in the definition of Schedule I drug, a fact acknowledged in every scheduling review prior to 2023. So I want to just go over really quick a couple of really interesting facts here. 18 million Americans use marijuana daily or near daily based on a 2022 survey data. That's roughly 6 to 7% of the U.S. population ages 12 and older. In 2022, same year, about 14.7 million Americans reported drinking alcohol daily or nearly every day. So that means that marijuana is now more used on a daily basis by far than alcohol. Well, I wanted to get into our. I know last week we didn't do a celebrity section, and I wanted to provide one for you this week. Real Housewives of New York City, which I can safely say I've not watched. Well, the cast member Jill Zarin has been fired from the reunion series. I guess they're doing a reunion one. The Golden Life, for what's been described as a racist rant against Bad Bunny and his Super Bowl halftime performance. The reunion show, The Golden Life, was announced on February 3rd and hasn't begun production yet, per Variety. But the reality show star won't be a part of it because of what she shared on social media. The outlet referred to Zarin's comments as a racist Bad Bunny tirade. Blink 49 Studios issued a statement about the situation on Tuesday that read, in light of the recent public comments made by Jill Zarin, Blink 49 Studios has decided not to move forward with her involvement in the Golden Life. We remain committed to delivering the series in line with our company standards. The racist rant is a since deleted video, and I'm gonna play this video for you so you can see if it's racist.
So we all agree. Now we all agree. I agree. I said it before that it was the worst halftime show ever, and it's 250 years that we're celebrating right now in the United States. And I just don't think it was appropriate to have it in Spanish. And quite frankly, I didn't need to see him grabbing his, G area. I think it was totally inappropriate. You've got all these young kids watching the Super Bowl, and he doesn't have to be grabbing himself every 5 seconds. Is he so insecure? Seriously, I didn't understand it. I don't speak Spanish. I would have liked to have known the words he was saying. To me, it looked like a political statement because there were literally no white people in the entire thing. I think it was a political statement, and I'm not taking a side one way or the other. I just do. I think it was an ICE thing. And I just think that the NFL sold out, and it's very sad because this was 75 years. And, shame. And Lady Gaga got a facelift. I didn't recognize her. I literally had to Google her face to see who it was because we all couldn't agree who it was. So that was kind of fun in the middle of halftime. At least it gave me something to do because it was so hard to watch.
All right. So that was the racist post. Okay. After being fired from the show, the Real Housewives alum defended herself in a statement to In Touch, saying, the Golden Life producers didn't even give me a chance. So they did all this without even consulting her. She said, I took it down right away, she said, of the Instagram reaction video. And people make mistakes. I'm human. So, yeah, I mean, she's obviously backpedaling now because she wants to be on that. But yeah, that's, it's always interesting to me how liberals will say, oh, yeah, well, everybody should have their opinions and everybody should have, there should be diversity of thought and all, except if you think differently than them. And that's exactly what's happening here. So anyway, lastly, I wanted to end things here with kind of a funny thing from the Olympics, as you know, that are going on. The Guardian reports that after days of embarrassing stories about Winter Olympic medals cracking, snapping, and even breaking in two after falling in the snow, organizers say they have finally fixed the problem. Officials have promised to repair any of the medals that were awarded in the opening 3 days of competition, after identifying on Monday that the issue stemmed from the medal's cord, which is fitted with a breakaway mechanism required by law. Yeah, required by law. The system is designed to release automatically if pulled with force, preventing the wearer from being choked. However, it led to problems that began on Saturday when the American downhill skiing champion Breezy Johnson revealed that her gold medal had fallen off her ribbon as she jumped in celebration. So that fix, I guess, is that they're going to ban the athletes from jumping in celebration when an athlete wins. and they also said that they will no longer get their medals from Temu. So anyway, would love to hear what your thoughts are on it and on any of the stories that we covered this week. Of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening.
This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.